So I already told you about Donald Trump with another example of his just terrible judgment, initially saying that he's fine with the North Korean missile launch that later he says didn't actually happen. This is a serious concern, or at least it should be, for the movement that cares about rationality and critical thinking and modern geopolitical relationships and really everything else under the umbrella of what I like to call reality. If you care about reality, if you want to operate in a world where reality influences our views and decisions and our sort of place in the world as humans, then you have to recognize that the fact that there's something very wrong with Donald Trump's judgment is an existential risk to the United States. And when we look back at all of these examples of Trump's poor judgment, I mean, just to give you a few, Trump's repeated statements that he believed Russian President Vladimir Putin, that Russia didn't interfere in the 2016 US election. That was Trump using what he believes to be his good judgment, which is not, to read a guy like Vladimir Putin and to come away saying, I believe him. I trust him. I think he's telling me the truth. Of course, we now have endless dozens and dozens of assessments and the Mueller report and everything else, which tells us actually American intelligence conclusions were right from the beginning about Russian interference. That one we talked about a lot. We just talked about the North Korea example 5 minutes ago. Trump said he doesn't think that Kim Jong-un and the regime did anything in violation of the UN Security Council resolutions with their recent launch. You'll remember that Donald Trump also said he doesn't believe that anybody high up at North Korea, in North Korea, had anything to do with or even awareness of what happened with the death of Otto Warmbier. Remember when Donald Trump said this?
I know the Warmbier family very well. I think they're an incredible family. What happened is horrible. I really believe something very bad happened to him, and I don't think that the top leadership knew about it. And when they had to send him home, by the way, I got the prisoners back, I got the hostages back, and Otto was one of the hostages, but Otto came back in shape that was not even to be talked about. I thought it was horrible. Now, the others came back extremely healthy, but Otto came back in a condition that was just terrible. And I did speak about it, and I don't believe that he would have allowed that to happen. It just wasn't to his advantage to allow that to happen.
Kim Jong-un, or at least the top leadership, knows when there are Americans being held in North Korea. Their value is huge to the North Korean propaganda machine, and it is an absolutely absurd assertion that Donald Trump made, and another example of his poor judgment. There's lots of other examples where it's more a question of, is Trump's judgment bad or is he just dumb? Like when he said Mexico is going to pay for the wall. Any sensible person realized they were never going to pay for it. It just wasn't going to happen. And Donald Trump insisted that they were. Is that bad judgment? Is that being dumb? Is that deliberately lying? I'm not really sure. Trump had the bad judgment to choose Michael Flynn as his national security advisor, despite having been warned multiple times by multiple people, including Barack Obama, about Michael Flynn. We know how that ended with Michael Flynn indicted. Trump had the bad judgment to attack John McCain endlessly, even after John McCain died. The disastrous judgment, which led Trump to start this endless, unwinnable trade war with China, which allows Russia to swoop in and improve their relationship with China, increasingly leaving the United States out to pasture. The limitless bad judgment of violating the Iran deal, even though Iran didn't violate the deal, which, as I told you 2 weeks ago, is now leading Iran to resume researching nuclear technology, predictable, and an internally logical move from Iran's point of view. And the more I think about it, I actually don't know whether these are examples of bad judgment or of Trump being simply ignorant or of Donald Trump being a bad person. But in either case, it's the motherload of bad decisions and bad positions that are coming from Donald Trump's inability or unwillingness to actually judge situations for what they are. We're sort of in a 1984-esque era in that way. I know that in the last couple of years, I've said that a lot of elements of what's going on today are less like 1984 and more like Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. This particular thing is more a 1984 thing, right? War is peace. Freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. Everything's backwards. Nothing is as it seems. And Donald Trump even said that trying to remember something like what you were seeing and hearing, you shouldn't believe, or you can't believe what you were seeing and hearing. It's good to be back from my vacation and my trip because we've got to get down to business with removing this menace because it is becoming extraordinarily belligerent and significantly more urgent, particularly as these long-term relationships are broken and bad decisions are made. And it's going to take whoever replaces Trump, be it in 2 years, I guess more like a year and a half now, whether it's in a year and a half or in 5.5 years, whoever ultimately replaces Donald Trump is going to have years of work to do to fix the problems that Donald Trump has created. Make sure you're following The David Pakman Show on Instagram to vote in this week's poll at David Pakman Show. We'll take a quick break and be back with much, much more right after this. It's great to be back.